I thought that 4 years ago, all of the universities I applied to rejected me. Turns out I was accepted into 5, including 2 Ivy Leagues, and my parents lied to me. 5, or had any special event/part to my name ever since. I guess I could have suspected it. They said, I thought that 4 years ago, all of the universities I applied to rejected me. Turns out I was accepted into 5, including 2 Ivy Leagues, and my parents lied to me. In 2020, I was set to graduate from my online high school. Due to health reasons, I have been schooled online since 3rd grade. They have old-fashioned values as they both immigrated from South India and are overprotective of me. I'm their firstborn, and seeing that my mother had me pretty early, it was safe to say they didn't exactly know how to raise me. My parents are good people, all things considered. Bar how they raised me, they are wonderful people, especially my dad. He has strong morals, always advocates for the poor, has no issue with being completely honest, and will stand up for what he believes is right. Or, at least I assumed he would. I wouldn't consider myself the best student, the best kid, the best person. Since I was young, I had a very poor self-image, mainly because of reasons I won't entirely get into here. But, suffice it to say, my mental and emotional health isn't at all stable, and having been gaslit and abused mentally and emotionally left its toll. Going back to 2020, it was a mess. Even without the pandemic shutting everything down, the year was turbulent for me as I had unknowingly skipped my junior year and was going straight into senior. I had to do SATs and college apps, all of them within the same few months. Yes, I was pissed that my time and effort in stressing over the SATs were wasted, but hey, what can you do? Anyway, I applied to 7 different universities. I won't name them, but amongst them were 2 Ivy League. My mindset was to apply to as many schools as I think I could qualify for, and go on from there. I don't fully recall what I applied for, but for the Ivy Leagues I had applied to their astronomy/astrophysics program, 2 pharmacy programs, and 1 pre-med program. I think the other 2 were possibly also astronomy or pre-med, I can't recall. When I was waiting for the first letter to come in, my heart sank as I read it being a rejection letter. Okay, that's fine. It wasn't my top university, so it's okay. Then came my second rejection, and then what I perceived to be my third. After that, I couldn't read them anymore and refused to log into the email, just asking my parents to relay the information. I trusted them, and I just didn't want to see any more rejections. The first 3 was already too hard to bear. So imagine how I felt when all of them rejected me. I know I should have suspected something then, but I didn't. I was an ignorant, trusting 17-year-old kid without any life experience, so I blindly took it and easily assumed I was a horrible, stupid, incompetent moron. My parents did their best to comfort me, assuring me that my local community college was a terrific option in these climates, and for us Finically, we're below the poverty line. I was so depressed, I couldn't even celebrate my graduation properly. I just made myself a little tiramisu, but it was absolutely atrocious because my heart wasn't in it. Ever since then, I've always had a crippling fear of further rejection, so I never actually tried since then. Every exam in college I had anxiety attacks, and constantly made mistakes that cost me a half-decent grade. I went from a 3.95 GPA to barely scrapping a 2.7 within a few months. I would accidentally skip questions, even multiple choice ones. I'd select the wrong choice, even if I knew what the correct one was. I recall that every professor I've ever had who was able to see my original answer constantly told me to stop doubting myself. I always had the answer right first, then would erase it, and give the wrong one. I just did not trust myself. I was a failure, a moron, an idiot, and my parents didn't deserve a child like me. Recently, I managed to scrape enough passing grades after plenty of failures to be able to apply to a PharmD program that my parents wanted. I got in, and needed to activate an account in order to pay my deposit. However, I couldn't find the email with my new university ID number anywhere. I eventually called, and after some information sharing, they revealed that with my name and social security number, I already had a number provided, given back in 2020, and that he'd happily resend it to me. But they only gave out ID numbers to students that were accepted. I was confused, and a little suspicious. So, I went through my mail deeper, and found an acceptance letter. It was dated to 2020, and it hadn't been read. Confused even further, I showed it to my parents. They exchanged glances and just shrugged. They revealed that I was accepted to that particular university for their pre-pharmacy program years ago. They just didn't tell me. I couldn't help but press more about the others. My mom seemed hesitant, but my dad said I was accepted into most, all, except the first few rejection letters I had read. My whole world was starting to turn upside down, and I was feeling faint. They kept talking, being so casual about it all, nonchalantly admitting they had sent emails and made phone calls. Mom pretending to be me. She has a very young voice, turning down the admissions, deleting most of the emails, and telling me I was rejected. Why? Because they didn't want me to even consider dorming or the like, considering the state of our finances plus the pandemic. I think the worst of it was how in the last 4 years, they kept randomly telling me, oh, it's a good thing you weren't accepted. With how you're doing in community college, those universities would have eaten you alive. Or things along those lines. I would have understood them if they told me. I was scared then too, to leave for university. I would have agreed and stayed in community college. But instead they lied to me, hid from me the truth, and let me believe I was worthless and incompetent. They let me constantly strive for their forgiveness over merely existing and wasting space. They let me drive myself to the edge of my sanity to make it up to them for my being a disappointment. They'd tell me that I wasn't good enough back then, but they were proud of me for being resilient otherwise. I had 2 unaliving attempts and physically cut myself plenty of times in order to punish myself. And I did it on my upper/inner thighs, so my parents wouldn't know and blame themselves. Though, they did catch a glance once, but my dad dismissed it as attention-seeking, and my mom, razor cuts. I'm still reeling from the shock. They're so dismissive about it, as if they didn't just fundamentally ruin my emotionally and mentally but change me so significantly, that I don't think I can ever recover from what they've done to me. This betrayal is the worst pain I've ever felt, and I want to scream and sob and break things. But I can't. I don't have the privacy to do that in our tiny little home. So I have to just suck it up as per usual, and shove it down. I've never had this many emotions clogged up in my throat. I've never felt this lethargic, this heavy, this blindsided. I don't know what to do, but all I know is that I can never truth my parents again. I don't think I can ever trust anyone properly again. If my own parents would do this to me, what's stopping anyone else from doing so? There are a few people I trust, though, but it still hurts so much. I wonder who I could have been if they hadn't lied and just talked to me. I wonder who I could have been if I had been allowed to pursue my passions. I already knew my parents hated me for wanting to go into astrophysics. I was told constantly it's a man's job and things along those lines. I thought they'd be proud to have an astrophysicist as a daughter, seeing how much they cared about their self-image. I thought they'd love me. But I guess since I've never had a proper birthday since I was, only event they'd ever celebrate with me would be my PharmD graduation, my wedding, and maybe my firstborn child. Nothing more. Now I feel like I don't want any of that. I just want to curl up in my bedsheet and forget about the rest of the world. Rethink everything. Redo everything.